Hello class, this is the second context lesson, and today it's all about the Russian Revolution. So reviewing, the unit is Begin Again. The who we're talking about are peasants. The what we're talking about are Vasenka eggs. The location, Eastern Europe. The time period that the eggs became part of the Easter celebration was 1313. The revolution did not occur then. That was much later in the 1900s. The purpose of the eggs is fertility, and the how is they are dyed and inked. So, the Russian Revolution. I'm going to tell you a story. Once upon a time, there was a princess. And then she lived happily ever after. But that's not true. That's the Disney version of Anastasia. Some of you may have seen the movie. If not, check it out, but don't believe it because a lot of it is a real bad twisting of history. But once upon a time, there was a Tsar and a Tsarina. A Tsar is like an emperor. And they had a bunch of kids, including the youngest princess, who was Anastasia. So this is the Tsar, and this is the Tsarina, and those are his 4 daughters and 1 son. That is Anastasia, the youngest. They lived in Russia, and they were very, 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 very rich. Lots of money. But there were also peasants who were very poor, very, 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 very poor, and they were freezing and starving because everything they worked so hard to build and grow went to the Tsar, and Russia is very cold and difficult to live in, and altogether this made them super cranky. And here are some peasants, and if you look at their faces, you can tell that they are all cranky. Now, the Tsarina, remember the empress, had a friend named Rasputin. This is Rasputin in the picture. He was a monk, sort of. He was more like a sorcerer, which is a magician that uses magic to make themselves rich. Now, the magic that we're talking about is thought about in 2 different ways. Some people believe that he was like magic, like Harry Potter type magic. And some people thought that he was more like hocus pocus magic, or in other words, really good at deception and illusion and sleight of hand, like Las Vegas magic. Regardless, Rasputin was not a nice guy. He convinced the Tsar and Tsarina to let him run the country pretty much while they concentrated on being rich and doing rich people things like going on vacation a lot and shopping a lot. And we will come back to Rasputin later. But basically know that at this point of the story, he is controlling the country and he is being exceptionally mean to the peasants. But the Tsar had another friend named Karl Fabergé, and Karl Fabergé was an artist. He made jewelry, and the Tsar liked to give presents to his family and lots of other people, everybody that he liked. The Tsar really loved Easter. It was his favorite holiday, and he loved to give super special Easter eggs, and Fabergé made those eggs, and that is a photograph of Fabergé. The Fabergé eggs were not eggs. Instead, they were made out of things like gold and pearls and diamonds, and they opened up and had cool little things like little golden carriages inside of them, and the carriages actually worked. There are 50 of them that still exist. They are worth now about $12 million or so. Over here on the right, you see the egg with the carriage. So the outside is enamel. The egg itself is gold. and that it has decorations, and it's hard to see, but there's diamonds and 4 sapphires. And then the little golden carriage, it also had tiny little diamonds and things on it. The wheels turn, the whole thing turns. It's just amazing. So these are some of the Fabergé eggs. And the outside, the colored part is pretty much enamel work where you grind up glass and like gems and then melt them over high heat until they turn into this kind of shiny solid. And then they had jewels and coral and pearls and things on them. This is the world egg at the top. It has little tiny portraits painted of the Tsar and Tsarina and their family, their children, their parents, everybody else. They have Imperial Russian eagles in gold in the crown. And then when you open it up, there is literally the world. A little globe made of gold and lapis, which is a gemstone. And next to it you have the rose egg. It's not open, but there is a rose inside of it. The outside, it has diamonds. The pink part is carved coral. You have the winter egg that opens up. It has a silver basket of snowdrops, which are the first flowers that bloom. The bee egg. This is the Imperial Palace egg, where inside there is a little Imperial Palace. And the Lily of the Valley egg. The Lily of the Valleys are pearls. And then the top pops up and out pops little portraits of the family. And this was kind of early on when they only had a few children. And this was given to the Tsarina. And there was a picture of the Tsar, her husband, and her 2 eldest daughters. However, not everybody was fond of these eggs. Because remember those cranky, starving peasants? They weren't fond of being starving and cold, and they weren't fond of the Tsar spending all of the country's cash on fancy eggs and other things like that. So they had a revolution. And in the story of Anastasia's Disney version, she escapes and goes to France and ends up living happily ever after. But that is not true. Things did not end well for the Tsar and his family, even the princess. They were tricked into a basement where they were executed and then buried in a ditch. Rasputin, remember him, the evil guy, the magic guy? Eventually he met his end. And it's kind of tricky because it was before the Tsar was actually murdered. Rasputin had attempted to be assassinated. A woman came up and stabbed him in the side because Rasputin was very fond of romancing women. And he was wounded, but he didn't die. He recovered. And then 3 of the political people thought, we have got to get rid of this guy. So they invited them over to their house for some tea and cake. And he ate the tea and cake, which was poisoned with cyanide, and it didn't bother him at all. And they kept waiting for him to fall over and die, and he didn't. So they gave him some wine, and he drank 3 glasses of poisoned wine. And they waited, and he still didn't die, or even get sick. He was totally fine. So then somebody pulled out a gun and shot him in the chest. And he fell down, and he appeared to be dead. So the guys went upstairs to get things together to go remove the body. They went back downstairs, and surprise! He wasn't dead. He jumped up and attacked them. So they shot him again twice, once in the head this time. This time he falls down, pretty sure he's dead. They tie him up and rolled him up into a sheet and took him to a river. It was the middle of winter time in Russia. The river was frozen. It was fast enough so it wasn't covered with solid ice. They could drop him into the frozen river. They dropped him into the river, and he was not found for a while, but somebody noticed his boot, And when they pulled out his body, people realized that he had been alive still when they dropped him in the river, even though he was shot 3 times and consumed a lot of poison and was previously stabbed. He actually drowned, was his cause of death, and he was trying to get out of the sheet. Yeah. Rasputin, tough guy, pretty evil, kind of magic. So, your assignment, and for this you need your Chromebook. You can use traditional or digital drawing materials. Your directions, you have to design your own Fabergé egg. You need to show the outside and the inside surprise as well. So draw both the egg and the surprise inside of it. Photograph it and upload. This is an assignment from a previous year. I thought this was really cute. And inside, if you don't recognize them, it is the Addams Family. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay. And listen to the Rasputin song.